everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I am your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
Ted, unfortunately, can't join us tonight. He's on a little bit of a vacation, so to speak. Not really on a vacation, but he's got something going on, so he can't join us for this bank of shows. But Ted, come back to us soon, buddy. We miss you. So Grant and I are doing this. We're kicking it old school, so to speak, right, Ted? Or right, Ted? Right, Grant?
That's right. And just like kicking it old school, we have some new people that may have been joining us over the past couple of months, which are patrons.
Yeah. So for about 2 years, we've had a Patreon page, and it helps us pay hosting fees and giveaways and swag and all sorts of stuff that we like to do for the community. If you're interested in joining and becoming a patron of us, you can join at any level. We've cleaned up the Patreon page a little bit to be more clear about what we do for you if you join at a particular level, but all you have to do is go right here. It's I guess it's going to be here, patreon.com/cardtalk2018. And it'll be
and it's how we get our guests on the show. David pays them.
I know, right? Well, that's one of the tiers. One of the tiers is if you get to be a guest on the show without doing whatever. So that's good. So right now, as of the recording of this show, we have 24. Count them, 24 patrons. So that's good. It's Dominic, Joseph, Phil. Phil is one of our longtime patrons, and so I don't know why I called him Philip, but it's Phil. And then Lou, Sean, David, Robert, Mike, Daniel, Kyle, Jason, Justin, Russ, Matt, Joshua, Jake, James, Vardane, Carl, Niall, Joe, Peter, Edmund, and Alex. Thank you all for being amazing to us, and that's good. And actually, what's really interesting is that when I was packaging up the swag, I needed an email address or two, so I sent an email to our patron Daniel, and he's joining us all the way from Australia. So, Daniel, thank you so much for being an Australian patron. That is amazing, and it's crazy how global in this game is and how much it reaches people. Oh, well, having said that, Grant, I think it's important for us to get into the card that we are going to talk about today. But right before we get into the card, I will say that with all the craziness that 2020 brought us, the guys thought that we should really, talk about healing. And so, 2021, we're hoping brings us healing in the game and healing in the world. So what better way to talk about healing and trying to move forward than talking about cards in the game that heal? So, Grant, what is today's healing card?
Well, we're going back to the core set.
That's the way it should go, right? Right back to the core set.
We're going for a core set classic. Self-preservation, the 3-cost lore attachment, which says attached to a character. Action, exhaust self-preservation to heal 3 points of damage from the attached character. 3 resource cost.
2 points of damage, I hope.
2.
Okay, I actually had to click on it. I was like, wait, 3 points of damage? Have I been playing it wrong? Right, it's 3. Right. So Grant, you clarified, right? 3 resources and 2 points.
Yep.
So, Grant, what do you think?
For being straight out of the core set, this is a powerful healing card because it targets not only heroes but allies as well.
Right.
It's a bit costly, so the three resources can be a bit of a bite to take, but it is 2 healing that's continuous every round.
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny. The guys over at Cardboard of the Rings talked about self-preservation on a recent show. I can't remember if it's 171 or 172, but they were talking about this for a little bit. And it's one of those things like attached to a character, which seems very flexible, but then, I'll ask the same question that they asked is, what character are you putting this on? You're not going to put it on Gandalf because Gandalf's going to leave play. Like, I wouldn't even put it on Overhill Underhill Gandalf because he's going to leave play. And you're not going to put it on a character that has, like 1 hit point, because an archery damage can get rid of that pretty straightforwardly. So, what character, what ally makes the most amount of sense? I think on any hero this makes a little bit of sense, but
Treebeard, yours are Treebeard, Jabbar. Erkenbrand's a great target for this, even though he's a hero.
Yeah, he's a hero, right? What about like Faramir, like Corset Faramir?
Corset Faramir could be a good target. He's got plausible stats to be used as a defender if needed. So,
I mean, I guess there's a cutoff, right? Like, you're going to put this on a character that has 3 or 4 or 5 hit points, like Beorn, right? You're not going to put this on a character that's got, 1 or 2 hit points, because the chances of you losing that character is greater, and then you've just spent 3 resources on something that's going to go, bye. Now, the problem with that is now you're paying 3 resources for this plus however many resources it costs to bring out that character. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, but if you're paying 4 leadership resources to bring out Lord Faramir, or not Lord Faramir, well, it could be Lord Faramir, but to bring out leadership Faramir, and then you bring out 3 more, you're 7 resources in. And that's a lot of resources to expend for an ally, I guess. So
okay,
I think you'd have to be really specific. I think you have to be really careful about putting this on an ally.
Yeah, you do have to be careful about putting it on an ally, because allies are subject to quite a lot of nasty effects.
Sure.
But here's another thing. Would you rather spend 3 up front and get 2 healing every round, or spend 1 from Eorith and get 3 healing once per turn?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think that this card was great when it came. This card is one of the few cards that didn't age well.
No.
So when you look at this compared to all the other cards in the healing card pool, like Eorith, Warden of Healing, even Lembas and healing herbs, like this is great that it's repeatable healing, but I feel like it's just not as good as some of the later healing options, like Warden of Healing, like Eorith, and so this card becomes nichey because it's just overshadowed by other cards. Like the beauty of this card is that it's an attachment that can be brought back using maybe Reforged, and and then you can bring it back. But again, you have to. I think that this is a card that's going to go on just a few specific heroes, and then that's it. But that's not because it's not good. And I don't know exactly how to say it. It's just that it's just not as good as the other cards that are in that same genre. Like, this card is almost an auto include in a Hero Treebeard deck. Like, you just do that, right? And then because you're gonna put this on Treebeard and you want that repeatable healing, but you're gonna use this in conjunction with Warden of Healing and Eorith, and you're gonna use it as another option in the arsenal of options that you have. Like you said, Erkenbrand is great, right? You do 1 damage to cancel a shadow effect, right? So I mean, so you put this on Erkenbrand, but after that, I don't know. I mean, I think it's good, and if you have a limited card pool, I think it's actually really good. I wish it were cost 2. Like if it were 2, I think it would still be a reasonable option for healing even now in the current card pool. I don't know. Did I make any sense there?
Yeah, you made some sense. But no, I agree with what you're saying. Its cost is a bit higher than what we would like for compared to the other healing cards. If it was cost 2, it'd be an auto include for healing.
Yeah.
But because it's cost 3, it isn't as cost effective as what it could be.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it would be an auto include in terms of healing if it cost 2. I think it would just be, something that people would consider a lot more. Like you said, like you can bring Eorth into play, and Eorth can attack and defend, and Eorth is super squishy, and that's part of the cost benefit analysis when you get into healing allies. That is for a different healing show, but to bring Eorth into play, you can heal 3 points of damage, right? You spend a lore for every lore resource turns into 3 hit points. 3 hit points healed. Even the core set Glorfindel is 1 for 1, right? Like you pay 1 resource for 1 healing. Now this is repeatable, so I can see the logic behind, why it's 3 is because you can get 6, 8, 10 heals out of this thing and heal, 8, 18, 20 hit points of damage if you're on Treebeard. But as far as I know, there's no way to ready an attachment. So it's not necessarily repeatable or it's not necessarily something that you can use multiple times every round. So I don't know,
Yeah, but here's the question though. If you stack up, say you're using Eorith, and you've got, say, you're using it every round, and you're only healing 1 or 2 damage, is that more cost effective or less cost effective than, say, spending the 3 and just healing with the self-preservation?
What's your question? Sorry.
Right. Say you've got a defender with, say, 4 hit points.
Yeah.
And you're using Eorith every round to heal up, say, the 2 points of damage that he takes every round from defending. Is it more cost effective to play Eorith and use the 1 resource around, or is it more beneficial to play self-preservation and
and then you're done paying for it, right? So if you have like Jabir out, let's say he's a common defender, and you get rid of the shadow effect, and then maybe he takes a point of damage, or and so I get what you're saying, is that you've spent the 3, and now it's done. It's that's in the past, and now you can focus on spending your lore resources for other stuff. Yeah, I mean, I still think that it's what do I like? I want this card. I want to love this card. Do you know what I mean? And I do love it in certain decks. Erkenbrand, like if you're using Erkenbrand or if you're using Treebeard, it's awesome on Treebeard. I will tell you that when you're building a Treebeard deck, if you're not building it with self-preservation, you're probably doing something wrong, because you need multiple forms of healing. But like you said, do you use Eorith or to heal somebody that just has 2 damage, and then you spend 1, after 4 or 5 rounds, you've now sunk 5 or 6 resources.
Well,
I know, and that's what I'm clarifying here, and I'm trying to talk it out. You may not be using all 3 hit point, and so I guess the thing is that it just depends, right? Isn't that Right? It just depends on what kind of deck you're building. Maybe you put Steward of Gondor on your lore hero and it's not a big deal, right? I don't know. In a mono lore deck, do you put 3 copies of Warden and 2 or 3 of these? Is that too much healing? I don't know.
Is there such a thing as too much healing?
Is there too much a thing? Is there such a thing as too much healing? That's a great question. I guess in solo, I feel like solo decks sometimes need just a little bit of healing and then don't need a ton of healing. But if you're playing 4-player and you need to, and you have a support deck, this may be a good card to put in that support deck, so you can put it on any one of those, 12 heroes or however many allies that are out in play. I don't know. Is this card good? That's really what it comes down to. Is it good?
Yes, it's good, but it's overshadowed since the release of the Warden of Healing, Yorith, and a lot of the other cards that have come out since,
Right.
because of the fact that people don't want to pay over the odds for healing.
I know, which is so funny because I agree. Like I look at healing and I'm like, I don't want to pay, continually for healing. Like with Warden of Healing, I hardly ever use his response or his action to ready him, and because I don't want to pay too much for healing, but it's so important to have. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
So the question then becomes, is this a good card? Yes, it's a good card for when it was released. Is it a good card now? It's a mediocre healing card. Again, there are circumstances where it is better than, say, some of the other cards. Is it better than the Warden of Healing? Probably not, because the Warden of Healing targets multiple people.
Yeah. The Warden of Healing, I think, is considered the gold standard of healing in the game, right?
Yeah. Is it better than Yorith? Potentially. It could be better than Yorith, because Yorith costs you 1, and you're getting 3 lots worth of healing rather than just the 2 from self-preservation. But eventually, self-preservation will make itself more cost-effective than what Yorith is.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those cards that I'm just torn on in terms of, if it's good or not.
I see the benefit in both self-preservation and other healing cards, because there is ways that they are equal or for certain situations.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that drives me nuts is this card doesn't get used in a Hobbit deck because everything has 2 hit points or less. So
Sam and
no, I know Sam and Tom Cotton, like Fatty Bulger, but the point is that I'm not going to put this card in a Hobbit deck for just one of my hobbits, right? Like I want to be able to use this healing card to be able to use it on maybe a couple of different heroes, unless it's Treebeard or like maybe an ally or two. So so there's a whole section of heroes that this doesn't go onto. You can't put it onto Sylvan allies because Sylvan allies are notorious. Let me rephrase to make sure that I'm clear, is that of course you can put this on Sylvan allies, but when you play a Sylvan deck that's traded Sylvan, you're relying on that they're squishy, and you're not counting on healing, bringing them in. You want them in and out of play, so you don't need to put this onto a Sylvan card, a Sylvan ally. So so this is one of those things that I just think that, if you have a limited card pool, you just have the core set, I think you have to kind of play this card, because you need that healing. But I think once you get up to, the Long Dark in the second, Shadow and Flame with Elrond, I think that there's just a lot of better options out there, right? That's where I'm going with this.
And that's what I was saying. There are better options, but self-preservation has been outclassed now.
Right.
If we were still talking Corset and Warrant Elf, then it'd still be a alright pick for healing
Right.
over, say, the Daughter of the Nimrod Elf.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You'd probably pick this over the Daughter. But for where we are now in the card pool, it is severely outclassed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the summary. Is that, as a core set card, this card just didn't age well. So if you're in the middle of collecting and you haven't gotten through Khazad Doom or the Dwarrowed Elf cycle, then I think you run Self-Preservation or Lore of Imladris because you need the healing, but then replace that card, or at least a couple copies of that card, with the Word of Healing when you get the Long Dark, right?
Yeah, I'd say that.
In general.
Yeah, this card makes a good point to go into like a 3 hunters deck where you can't have allies.
Right. And that, I'm glad that you bring that up, because, I feel like, we've been recording a block of shows now, and I feel like we've been kind of ignoring the contracts a little bit. And so, in a 300 stack, this is something that goes on there, and you can't have allies, so you can't have healing, even though the contract itself heals, like that sometimes isn't enough.
Sometimes you need that little bit extra healing.
If you have a dedicated defender like a Baragond or somebody who's defending Grimbeorn, Grant, your favorite, like, yeah, he can get up to 6 defense, but sometimes, that's still not enough, especially in these later cycles where, you have something with 9 attack, and all of a sudden, like, Grimbeorn takes 3 damage, and now all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh. And, you can exhaust this immediately, well, during an action window, right? Yes, it's an action, right? During an action window, you can exhaust it to heal the damage, and then you feel a little better about doing a different defenses and going into the next phase or whatever, So yeah, so that's a good fit too.
What I was also thinking was, as I said earlier, it's a good fit for Erkenbrand.
Oh yeah,
because he deals 1 damage to himself, and then has the then if he takes a damage from, say, the attack itself and he's cancelled shadow effect, there's 2 damage on Erkenbrand right there.
Right. And you can put stuff on Erkenbrand to help his attack, but sometimes the boss enemy is just too big, right? Like,
yeah,
not to kill him, but to, like, I don't know. So then the question becomes, do we put this onto, like, what's the difference between this and cards that prevent damage? Like the Honor Guard and the, like, maybe that's a conversation for a different show, but like,
if you want to get into that now, I can tell you.
Well, I know what the difference is, but I mean, like
discussing it for this card in particular. Let's take Erkenbrand as a prime example.
Right. Well, it's a non-bow with, you can't prevent that damage and then cancel the shadow effect.
Exactly. And if you take Bjorn, the hero version, he can't have attachments. So things like attachments like self-preservation won't work on him.
Right. So you need Honor Guard and
ways to mitigate that damage, which the Honor Guard does.
Right. Yeah. And I guess each has a different place in your deck, right?
Yeah.
And so it just depends on what kind of deck you're building to do it. But yeah.
I mean, essentially, I'd take healing and damage cancellation if I had room for it, because they both do a good job in cancelling the damage,
right.
Whether it's after the fact or not. You're taking you're getting the same amount of either healing or damage cancellation that you're paying for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I know that I've said this, a million times about Treebeard, but I think that this also goes on when you're thinking about other allies to put this on, because it can go on characters. You could put it on some Bjornings. You could also put this on some Ents. There's some Ents that would be really happy to have this card on him because, like Beachbone. Like he gets damage, and then you get to do damage. You get to do hit points equal. So it helps. It's a way to help kind of control how much damage is on. Gimli is hero Gimli from the core set. Is that good for this? Is this good for that hero? Because you want to get damage on Gimli, but you also want to make sure that you can, mitigate the damage on the hero. You're like, it's getting a little too much.
It's definitely a potential to put it on Gimli for when he's down to his last, say, 2 hit points.
Right.
With, say, if he's got a Citadel plate on. It's definitely one of the ones where you think, right, well, I'll need to start getting some defensive, some way of mitigating that damage from killing my hero.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Now, just to clarify for the listeners, keep in mind that this happens at action speed, not response speed. So if you get attacked and you take damage that's going to destroy your character, then that's going to happen. You can't go back in time and heal. I mean, of course you can play it however you want, but the rules say that character gets destroyed, then you can't exhaust self-preservation to then heal 2 points of damage right at that point. So I don't know. Should we ring this guy?
Yeah, let's go and ring self-preservation.
Okay. Oh, let's talk about the artwork. What do you think of the artwork?
The artwork for me is quite funny.
I know, it is funny. That's a great word to describe it.
The dwarf just saying no to the arrows and dropping himself down.
Is that a dwarf?
Well, I'm guessing it's a dwarf.
Because of the beard on the...
yeah.
Right. And then is he jumping behind a rock? Is that what he's doing?
He's either jumping behind or he's just dropping himself as if to kick a football.
Yeah, right. And by football, you mean soccer ball.
Yes, for the Americans, I mean a soccer ball.
Yeah, and it says, and I don't know, this to me is more of cartoon. Lord of the Rings prides itself on its amazing artwork, and this just seems a little more cartoony than what it normally puts out. So, not everything is going to be an amazing, not every card is going to have Magali artwork on it, or Alexander Karst artwork on it, but this just seems to kind of be a little more cartoony on it than I'm used to.
And I'm actually quite surprised they chose to do this instead of something from Helm's Deep, because of the quote they used. How much more of this would they have to endure, or could they endure?
Right, and so I think isn't that a line that is explaining how they are getting sieged in Helm's Deep, and they were like, how much more can this go on? How much longer can this go on?
Yep.
Right, and so and that's one of the things that happens earlier on in the game, is that a lot of times the art, it's not 100% cohesive, so the artwork didn't necessarily match up with the, but I think that as the game went on, it definitely became a little bit of a more cohesive, each card became a little more cohesive in that sort of thing. So, well, should we ring this guy?
Yeah, let's ring it.
I know we were supposed to do that 7 minutes ago, but we just kept talking. Anyways, for anybody who doesn't know or is new to the show, or maybe you've forgotten, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we ring a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the best card in the game, or one of the best cards in the game, and it's, the one card to rule them all. And then we have we can rate a card a 10, which is lowest on our scale, and that's the card that gets thrown back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, Grant, you went first last time, so I'll go on this one. And this is the first time. I mean, we've been doing this podcast for almost 3 years now. This is the first time that I actually feel bad about this rating. I normally am not. I'm normally not so like feel bad when I give a card a bad rating. You know, Brock Iron Fist definitely like he deserves a 10. You know, but this is a card that I wanted and I want to be good, and it is good earlier in the game, but it just gets outclassed and is outclassed by too many cards. I just think that there's too many other healing cards that this just doesn't fit the bill. Warden is so dynamic, and Eorith is so good, and then other cards like Ethelos and Lembas, like this card just really, I don't know, it just, so, you know, if you're early in the card pool, play this card. If you've gotten up to the Long Dark and have Warden, it's all over. So I have to give this card a 7. I don't want to, because I want to love this card because it works so beautifully in a Treebeard deck, but you know, you can't play this card if you only have one lore hero. You know, your lore resources are too important a lot of the time. So I don't know. So I have to give this card a 7, and I almost gave it an 8. So Grant, what do you think?
Me, again, I want to like this card, and I have, if you've seen any of the stuff I've done with Samuel Shreve on
Ancient Mathoms, right?
Ancient Mathoms, we altered what the cost of this card, I believe, or we've made it a little bit more versatile to actually use it the way it might have been done if it was released in today's card pool. And it's, like I say, I want to like this card. I think it's definitely a good card. Is it a great card? No. So I'm going to give it 6 rings.
6. Okay.
Yeah. Because even though it's such a high cost compared to when we compare to other healing, it is still a decent card for, say, using in a 3 Hunters deck where you need a little extra healing.
Right.
So I'm giving it 6. I'm close to giving it a 7, but again, it's just, I just can't quite give it that higher rating.
Okay, well, there you have it. Self-preservation rung up. So join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube, and there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.